Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I remember A24 and everyone were like, this is a mistake, right?
Yeah. Let's talk about the ending of Marty Supreme. Well, we already talked about the ending, but I just come to find out that there is an alternate ending, apparently, that was supposed to be made. But A24 came and told Josh Safdie, you gotta be kidding me, right?
I remember A24 and everyone were like, this is a mistake, right?
Yeah. So let's talk about that alternative ending. Just a pretty fun, lighthearted video about that. Hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell. We talk about all the things you love in movies, music, and all of that. So make sure you are subscribed to Culture Elixir. But let's talk about the alternative ending. Now, if you want to hear me talk about the real ending, you can check out our video in the link above or below, wherever it pops up. And I also have a longer video talking about Marty Supreme coming out this week. Don't miss out on that. But of course, spoilers ahead for Marty Supreme. If you have not seen this movie, I highly recommend it. It is one of my favorite films of the year. I definitely think Timothée Chalamet is going for that Oscar. But let's talk about Marty Supreme. So according to Josh Safdie on a podcast of the A24 podcast, actually, that he had with Sean Baker, who is another talented director, he went on to talk about how they almost had a different ending. And this is based on something with Kevin O'Leary's character. So according to Josh Safdie, there was a version of the script in which we would ultimately see that Timothée Chalamet as Marty Supreme, Marty Mauser, of course, not Marty Supreme. So according to Josh Safdie, in the original ending, we see Marty Mauser come back to America and ultimately decide to raise this baby that he is now saying is his, or some people don't think it's really his, but he is sort of like saying, all right, you know what? Dream's over. I got to get to reality and see what I'm going to do now and raise this kid, right? According to Josh Safdie, in the alternative ending, we would have seen Marty Mauser take over the shoe store. He would ultimately rename it, franchise again, move out of New York, go and get a beautiful big home, become insanely wealthy now as a shoe salesman who has franchised his shoe stores all over. And we would see him in the 80s with Tears for Fears playing as he would go to a concert with his granddaughter, best seat in the house, and ultimately reflect back on his youth and everything that he didn't come to be. Because of course Marty is wealthy, he's rich, he's got all of this stuff, but is this really what he wanted, or was his dream elsewhere and now it's gone? And before Marty could even come to terms with all of that, what we would see happen is that Kevin O'Leary's character would pop up from behind him, not having aged a bit, and bite into his neck and scene. And apparently there was prosthetics and everything built already for Timothy to look old. And I just thought that that was a fascinating idea. And I would have loved to see that ending if they had gotten to film it. But according to Josh Safdie, they did not. And, you know, I don't know if he's joking or not about all of this, but that just takes it to another level and really adds more to what I want to talk more about Marty Supreme in the video coming out this week. Because he mentioned some other interesting stuff throughout this podcast, which I'll talk about. But I'll play some clips, or maybe I've already played some clips by now. So if you can see what I'm saying and he's saying about this alternative ending.
And it ends with him at a concert with Tears for Fears with his granddaughter. They're great seats up front. And he's watching it and he's thinking about everybody wants to rule the world and youth. And what does it mean? And he has this success, but he's not doing the thing that he believed he was born on planet to do. But he has all this great stuff around. He has these great things around him.
Interesting.
And you're on his eyes. We built the prosthetics for Timmy and everything. And Mr. Wonderful shows up behind him and takes a bite out of his neck. And that was the last thing.
Oh my God.
And he hasn't aged.
But I'm very curious how this would have landed with people if this was the ending. In my opinion, and as Sean Baker says, I think the original ending that Josh captured here for Marty Supreme, the one we saw, was powerful. And I think it's just one of the best ending shots I've seen in a movie in a long time. I think that this other ending would have been fun and crazy, and I think I would have dug it as well, but I think I dig the original ending a little bit more. But maybe I have to see how they would have shot this, because the way they explain everything, it just sounds crazy and bizarre. And I love when movies just take a left field and leave the audience like, what? That just happened? But I also love a movie like Marty Supreme that is so controlled and structured. So I'm very curious to see what people think about this alternative ending. We are building the hype now as we get closer to Oscar nominations this week. Timothée Chalamet, and I want to talk about that more. But according to Josh Safdie as well, it's sort of laid out throughout the film that Mr. Wonderful Kevin O'Leary's character is actually a vampire. At one point, he has a line that says he was born in 1601, apparently. And although you're supposed to take it as a joke, as he is this very soulless type of person in the film, maybe it was supposed to be taken literally, and Kevin O'Leary's character is in fact a vampire who is now pissed off about what Marty Mauser did to him and humiliated him, and now he has been hunting him, waiting for Marty to reach that pinnacle of success. Once Marty reached it, he turns him into a vampire, right? That's pretty much what I'm assuming it is. Marty became this soulless person just as Kevin O'Leary's character has been this whole time. And it kind of has a good ring to it in my mind now that I'm hearing myself talk about it, and I can see where Josh Safdie was going with that. But I really do think it would have been one of those endings that people would have hated or loved. And, you know, I think that the ending to Marty Supreme, the ending we actually saw, is still like a divisive ending, but I still think it's a stronger, more pleasant ending, I guess you could say. But I'm curious to know what you think about this alternative ending. I had to make a whole video for it just to talk about it, because I just thought it was like a spoof account when I saw it at first. I was saying that this was the original ending, but no, it was in fact in the A24 podcast between Josh Safdie and Sean Baker, and just a very, very interesting way to finish this movie. Although it wouldn't feel too perplexing to have that ending, considering all of the insanity that happens in this movie. It is actually quite fitting, and I'm kind of liking it more that I talk about it. When I started this video, I pressed record and everything. I was like, I'm going to talk about this insane ending that just sounds so like bizarre and crazy. It's kind of funny, but now I'm kind of digging it a little bit more. The power of talking it through, y'all. But anyways, we do have another video talking about 28 years later, the Bone Temple, coming out tonight. Tomorrow we are going to start talking about the Oscars and all of that. Although I'm not a big fan of awards season, I do think people like to hear and talk about it, so that's what we're going to do, and I'll give you my opinions on that. I've seen every single film that is going to be nominated at the Oscars, so I'm very excited to talk about that for sure. But let me know your thoughts and opinions. I don't know if we're going to be seeing any movies this week. There's some screeners that are out, and I'm just not sure I want to see them at the end of the day. I'm trying to be a little bit more selective with films and not really just rush out to see everything nowadays. I did that a couple of years ago, and it was draining. Last year, I started to sort of have a bit more control, but we'll see. I don't know. I am kind of a sucker sometimes, and I'm just like, you know what? I feel like going to the movies, getting some popcorn, a Coke Icy, and just chilling and watching something. So we'll see. I might see a movie this week, so stay tuned for that. But as always, that is going to do it for me on the road to 50,000 subscribers. Let me know your thoughts and opinions on this alternative ending to Marty Supreme. Would this have made or break the movie for you, or do you think the ending we got was just perfect? In my opinion, it was perfect. Let me know your opinions in the comments below. Stay tuned for our 28 years later, the Bone Temple video tonight, and I'll see all of you next time. As always, follow us wherever you can on our website, www.culturelixir.com, or our other social medias. I'll see all of you next time. Stay safe, stay positive.